Did you know that something as simple as dimming the lights in your house at night or waiting an hour in the morning before having your coffee can totally make an impact in your hormones? I didn't either until I actually started diving into it and learning more about this. If you're new around here, my name is Carolina. I'm a holistic health coach and a mindset coach. And on today's video, I'm going to be diving into the 10 things that I've done to really improve my hormone health. I'm going to start the video by just explaining a little bit about how I got into hormone health. Then we'll dive into what hormones really are, why they're important, and how they tie into your lifestyle choices, and then we'll go into the 10 things that I've started to do to really improve my hormone health and show up for myself. Also, just as a little PSA before we hop into the video, I am not a doctor or a medical professional in that way, and all the things that I'm sharing have come from my own personal experience, so take everything that I share with a grain of salt and always keep that in mind whenever I'm sharing videos like this. So with all that said, let's jump in. I first got into the topic of hormones after going off of birth control a little over 4 years ago. I stopped taking hormonal birth control in March of 2021. And after going off, I started to realize how irregular my cycles were. I knew something was off of my hormones because I was having cycles that were really long, specifically in my case, like sometimes even 40 days long. And because of that, I felt like I couldn't properly track my cycle naturally or really understand what was going on with my body. And that's what really led me to dive deeper into this topic and learn everything that I could. I was already certified as a holistic health coach at this point, but I also decided to get certified as a hormone specialist through NCI. So I did that course. I started reading a bunch of books. I started connecting with other people in the hormone space and getting more comprehensive blood tests. And I also worked with a company called Alara Health, which specializes in hormones to really rule out PCOS, thyroid issues. All in all, I really just dove deep. And what I took out of all of this is that our hormone health isn't just about the cycle. It ties into everything in your life. It ties into your nutrition, your stress levels, your mood, your energy, your sleep. And as I've started to learn more about this, I've started to make more of an effort to make little shifts in my lifestyle to support my hormone health and optimize it. Hopefully after you watch this, you can feel a little bit more informed about different ways to support yourself and feel better as well. Because as I said, our hormones tie into how we feel overall. Before we get into it and dive into the 10 things that I've been prioritizing over the last couple of years, I just want to touch on why hormone health matters in the first place. If you're new to hormone health, at a baseline, hormones are our body's chemical messengers. They move through our bloodstream and they influence the way that our tissues and organs function. Our body has so many different hormones and each hormone has a different function. Each hormone is like a key and each receptor in our body is like a lock that those specific keys fit into and trigger certain things to happen. But for these actions to be triggered, the right key needs to fit into the right lock, if that makes any sense. And what's important to really understand also is the impact that our lifestyle can have on our hormone health. Our brain and our body are always giving feedback to each other, and our stress levels, our choices, our nutrition, our lifestyle all have an impact on how our hormones regulate. And our hormone levels are always in flux, and they are affected by what's going on in our life and how we evolve over time. So as our life changes, our hormone health and our hormone levels can also change. And that's why paying attention to your lifestyle and your choices can also improve your hormone health if you make it a priority. The first thing that I started to do to support my hormone health is pay more attention to and regulate my circadian rhythm. If you're not familiar with what the circadian rhythm is, it's basically a 24-hour hormone cycle that every single human goes through, men and women alike. And the circadian rhythm is tied to cortisol and melatonin, which also tie into light and dark. And so attuning your body to the light and dark cycles is a part of how you can regulate your circadian rhythm and get your body in tune with its natural cycles that it's supposed to be experiencing every single day. And because we live in like this modern world that has a lot of artificial light, our circadian rhythm can easily get affected. Also, if you work overnight shifts or you have like a type of lifestyle that causes you to have to be awake during the night, this could have an impact on your circadian rhythm as well. Keep that in mind. But some of the things that I've started to do that has really helped regulate my circadian rhythm to the point where now I wake up naturally at the same time every single day without an alarm. So some of those things are whenever the sun sets and it starts to get dark outside, my husband and I start dimming the lights in our house. We don't use overhead lights. and we just use little lamps and mood lighting. On one hand, that makes our home feel super cozy and really nice when it's nighttime, but it's also really good for your hormones because it starts to signal to your body to slow down, to start producing melatonin, to get you tired, so that you can prepare your body for sleep. And having a night routine also plays a role here. So learning to clock off of work at a reasonable time and really just like slowing down and having some little rituals that I do at night really helped. So taking a warm shower and cooking a nice little dinner, taking magnesium glycinate every night. That has been something I've been doing for years. Watching a little show with Pedro and then getting into bed and like reading in bed on my Kindle with all of the lights off. And the moment that I start to get tired, I just put my Kindle down and I go to sleep. That at a baseline has helped a ton. And then also on the opposite end, whenever I wake up, I try as much as I can to expose my body to light. So that means, whenever I get into my bathroom, turning on the lights or opening the shades, like making sure there's light filling into my room. But then also whenever I can, getting outside and seeing sunlight. These are little things that seem kind of like random, but trust me, it can have a big impact on your hormones, and it can also really help you just start getting better sleep and feeling more well rested whenever you wake up. Okay, up next we have balanced meals. One of the most important hormones in your body is insulin, and one of the simplest ways to support this hormone is eating meals that are balanced. What this means is avoiding eating naked carbs, aka carbs on their own, and making sure to pair carbs with protein, with fiber, and with some sort of healthy fat. This helps make sure that you're not having blood sugar spikes all of the time. If you're someone who cares about hormone health, let this be your sign to make this a priority. This is one of the most underrated things you can do to support balanced hormones for the rest of your life. Some other things that I try to prioritize to support my blood sugar and my body's production of insulin is if I'm gonna have dessert, I try to have it after I have a meal, especially after I have a savory meal that's packed with protein. That prevents the dessert from like overly spiking your blood sugar. That also applies to like sugary drinks. I also try to make it a priority to focus on whole unprocessed foods and add in, fruits and vegetables and color into my food. And as much as I can, be mindful of not overdoing it with processed foods. So a lot of like fried things and a lot of sugar. Again, you guys know me. If you've watched any of my videos, I'm not someone who promotes being intense and cutting everything out, but being mindful of these things and not overdoing it with these things is really important if you want to balance your blood sugar and if you want to care for your body and really honor your health. And last but not least, this is something I personally choose to do. It's not going too long without eating. I try to eat every 3 to 4 hours. I've found this is what makes me feel the best. When I prevent myself from going too long without eating, I also prevent myself from getting to a level of hunger that I feel makes me hangry or feels almost uncontained, where the next time that I have a meal, I'm just gonna like go crazy. Eating regular meals just helps me make sure I'm nourished, make sure I'm fueled, and overall support blood sugar balance too. Point number 3 is probably the most important one that I'm gonna make in this entire video, and that is managing my stress levels. For most of my life, I would say I have fitted the stereotype, quote unquote, of being the overachieving, stressed out, type A, perfectionistic older sister, where I'm just always running around, overcommitting to things, trying to do my best at everything that I do. And even though I might feel pressures externally, most of the pressure that I feel is coming from myself. And so taking my stress seriously, being more proactive about reducing it has been really key in improving my hormone health, because our stress levels connect back to cortisol, which is also called the stress hormone. And what I realized after I started working with practitioners from LR Health, which is this telehealth company that focuses on hormones, and really looking into my blood work, is that my irregular cycle wasn't due to PCOS. It wasn't due to a major hormonal imbalance or hormonal condition. It was simply due to my stress. And the moment that I really started taking my stress more seriously and learning to reduce the pressure that I put on myself and to say no with a little bit more intention and to not overcommit myself and to learn to rest, a lot of my issues went away or improved. And nowadays, I actually don't really have an irregular cycle anymore. And I really believe that managing my stress has played a key role in this, and point number 4 and 5, which I'll speak to in a bit, also tie into this. You could be doing a lot of things for your hormone health, like eating balanced meals, balancing your circadian rhythm, but if you're not addressing your stress and you're living in this constant state of fight or flight, you're probably gonna have some sort of hormone issue pop up. Stress is like the biggest disruptor of hormones, and so make it a priority to get real with yourself about this. Expanding on point number 3 and diving into point number 4, something that I have made a bigger priority, especially as a woman, is resting. And starting to see rest as something productive, as something important, as something that doesn't slow me down, but instead helps me speed up. Because if you're just constantly pushing and pushing and pushing, and you get to the point where your tank is empty, you're gonna burn out and you're gonna build up those stress hormones and you're gonna be impacting your hormone health. And something I was actually recently talking to my family about is the fact that stress can actually show up in our life in so many different forms. So we could have physical stress, like not sleeping enough, not eating enough, being dehydrated, but we could also be going through mental stress and emotional stress, like feeling guilty and ashamed and worried, or cognitive stress, like being overstimulated and constantly feeling like we're running out of time and rushing everywhere, or even social stress and spiritual stress, like feeling like we're not connected to our values or feeling really lonely and isolated. So really prioritizing rest in multiple different forms has been important. On one hand, like taking rest days from the gym. This has been really important to me. I used to be someone who worked out every single day, like intense workouts. And that really made me feel pretty inflamed, I realized. So I've started to really make sure that I'm getting rest days from the gym at least 2 to 3 times a week. So instead of lifting weights like 6 times a week, I'm now lifting weights 3 to 4 times a week. And as women specifically, we need more rest. Like this is something that has to be a non-negotiable, but also tying into the other types of stress that I was mentioning, having other types of rest is important. So balancing out, being in positive social environments with alone time to recharge your batteries. And if you're working a lot, like taking breaks to like go on a walk or take a shower. The goal here is signaling to your body that you are safe and getting out of fight or flight and into rest and digest, which is the energetic and hormonal state in which our body can truly thrive and find balance. One last thing is also understanding that you don't have to rush through life. We live in this society where everything has to be instantaneous. We want instant gratification with everything. We want to like get notifications immediately and like answers immediately, and we put pressure on ourselves to rush through life, and we're constantly comparing our timelines to other people and feeling like we're behind. And if you're someone who thinks this way and lives this way, you might not be realizing the impact that it's truly having on you energetically and hormonally. And this is something I've consciously been working on, is getting out of this rat race and being at peace with my timing and being more grateful and more centered and grounded, and like it's gonna be okay. Like I don't have to run to catch every yellow light. Like I don't have to cross the street when it's blinking. Like I don't have to be running to get the subway if there's one coming in the next 2 minutes. I don't have to be like answering everyone right away when I get a text or every email. Like slow down. Like if you really start to make an effort to do this, you're gonna notice a big impact. So don't knock it till you try it. I was about to go,
okay, this is probably gonna be one of the most important things I'm gonna say in this video.
And in truth, that's kind of how I feel about every point that I'm making in this video. So anyway, point number 5 is sleep. In order to truly live your best life when it comes to your hormones, you have to let go of the idea that sleep is for the weak. I'll sleep when I'm dead. No, my friend, no. Sleep needs to be a non-negotiable. Getting enough sleep and getting quality sleep needs to be a priority if you want your hormone health to be optimal, especially if you're a woman. I started to notice the impact that sleep was having on me within the first couple years of tracking my cycle naturally and like diving into hormone health, and also after getting the Oura Ring and getting data on my sleep. I think so many people, if you're not like tracking your sleep, you'll be like, okay, go to bed at midnight, I wake up at 7, I get 7 hours of sleep. But when you start getting some type of sleep tracker, you start to realize that you're actually not getting as much sleep as you think you are, if you're thinking about sleep in that way. And there are many different things that could also be disrupting your sleep, like eating a meal very close to bedtime, or not having a proper unwinding routine, or drinking alcohol, excess caffeine. Like all these different things could be impacting your sleep, and you'll start to notice correlations if you wear a tracker tracker like an Oura Ring or a Whoop or something like that. I'm not saying you have to get one of these, but I'm just saying for me, once I got the Oura Ring, I actually started to notice more of these correlations. And what I also started to realize was that I needed more sleep in order to feel truly well. So it took me a while, I'm not gonna lie, to finally make this a priority. I would say out loud like, oh, I need to be sleeping more, I need to be getting better sleep, but I wasn't doing anything about it. And like I was going to bed at midnight or later a lot of the times and waking up tired and not getting enough REM sleep and a lot of these different things. So I'd say like mid 2023, early 2024 is when I really did something about this and I started to change the priority that I was putting on sleep. Over the last year, I've started getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep as often as I can, like letting myself sleep in a little. I don't have to like wake up and like rush to a workout and like have this crazy morning routine, like prioritizing slightly slower mornings and like doing my workouts a little bit later in the day whenever I can and getting more sleep during my period and leading up to my period. Like all of these little things have really added up. And as I started to do this, I started to notice how much better I was feeling, how much more energized I was feeling, and also how much better I was feeling during my workouts. And now, like if I have a couple of nights of shitty sleep, like I notice when I'm lifting weights, like I feel so much weaker. For example, this past weekend, I was visiting my family in Florida for my dad's birthday, and we were just like having fun. Like I ended up going to bed past midnight every night, and then I had my personal training session on Monday, and I was dying. Like I was having such a hard time getting through the workout. And I know it was because of that. I know it was because I was just not sleeping enough. So yeah, overall, as I've started to prioritize sleep, I've noticed a big improvement in my energy, but also in my mood and in my cycle regularity. Okay, point number 6 is having more caffeine mindfulness. What this means in simple terms is not overdoing it with caffeine. So trying my best to stick to one caffeinated beverage a day. And then also, more importantly, not having caffeine right after waking up. Like most people, I'd say, especially in the US, but like in a lot of different cultures, wake up and instantaneously go to their coffee machine to brew their coffee and have it. I feel like people do this like before they even brush their teeth, before they have breakfast. Like it's very, very, very common. However, one of the things that can really help your hormones is waiting at least 30 minutes after you wake up, but ideally 60 minutes to 90 minutes after you wake up before having caffeine. And that is because according to the circadian rhythm, we have something called the CAR, the cortisol awakening response. And what this means is that whenever we wake up, like pretty soon after, we have a natural spike in cortisol. And this is when our cortisol usually peaks in a whole day. And if you have caffeine right after you wake up, you are kind of blunting this process that happens naturally. And this starts making you more dependent on caffeine to feel alert and awake. And if this is something that you're doing over time, constantly, that can start to dysregulate your circadian rhythm, and then it can also cause issues with sleep, or it can make you tired in the afternoon. Essentially, by waiting a little bit to have your caffeine, you're allowing your body to have this natural cortisol awakening response, and this will help you feel more alert, more awake, and it again will be helping your circadian rhythm, your cortisol levels. Also, not having caffeine too late in the day is really important. So I try not to have caffeine ideally after noon, like after 12, but that doesn't happen all of the time. So my max is usually 2 p.m. Like that's on a special occasion. And that just helps your body, again, prevent any increases in your cortisol later in the day, and can help your body start to produce melatonin as it's naturally supposed to, because cortisol and melatonin have an inverse relationship. So if your cortisol is going up, for example, by drinking caffeine, it's going to take longer for your body to produce melatonin because cortisol has to decrease for melatonin to increase. And one other caffeine related shift that I've made, and I've talked about this before, is I primarily only drink matcha now. Like I have been only drinking matcha since April 2025, and I do occasionally have coffee, but whenever I do, it's always decaf. And this is just my personal preference. Everyone has a different sensitivity to coffee as well, and like a different metabolism of caffeine in their body. I personally think it takes a while for caffeine to leave my body, and like I'm pretty sensitive to it, so keep that in mind, of course. But coffee as a source of caffeine gives you that quick burst of energy, and as a result, it can affect your cortisol a little bit more, and if you're mistiming it, it could impact your sleep. But matcha, on the other hand, gives you a little bit more steadier energy because it's released more slowly into your bloodstream. And because of that, it can also be a little bit easier on your adrenals and on your hormone health overall. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the main reason why I even got into hormone health in the first place was because I went off of birth control and I wanted to start naturally tracking my cycle and living in alignment with my cycle as well. What I started to really understand is that as women, we have a completely different hormonal pattern that we go through every single month. So for me, a big way of empowering myself was really educating myself on cycle health and just understanding my body better, because as much as I wish health classes did this, they don't. Like, we are not taught about the menstrual cycle in depth when we're in high school. We don't have a crash course on
what are the cycle hormones, what are the 4 cycle phases, what is the luteal phase, what is the ovulatory phase, like when are women actually fertile, like when is the fertile window, how do you track your cycle naturally?
We're not taught any of this. So it's up to us to choose to empower ourselves with this information. And that's something I really took it upon myself to learn about because it was important to me. And if you're at all curious about any of this, I actually have a few resources, like digital products that I sell, that if it's something at all that you want to dive into, it's there for you. I'm not pressuring you to get it, but it's something I created with a lot of love. So I have a cycle syncing course that is very in-depth into the cycle, and then I also have a hormone guidebook that dives into the cycle hormones, but also dives into insulin and cortisol and melatonin and a lot of what I've talked about today as well. So I'll link those below in case you're interested. And also, I recently posted this resource called Fuel Your Cycle on my Substack. And it's a 4-week guide that explains the 4 cycle phases and then also the nutrition for each of the cycle phases. So aside from eating balanced meals, something you can do to align your life with your cycle is tailor your nutrition during each cycle phase a little bit, where you just prioritize certain ingredients a little bit more during those cycle phases, and that can help optimize hormone production depending on the phase that you're in. So I'll link that below as well. But part of this cycle awareness too has been learning to track my cycle naturally. So I do what's called the fertility awareness method, which means I track my basal body temperature. And for that, I use the Oura Ring, and then I also connect my Oura Ring to the Natural Cycles app. So I do that, and then I also observe my cervical mucus and I track ovulation using LH testing. I have content about this on my TikTok, and it's also fully outlined in both the hormone handbook and the cycle syncing course if you're interested in learning more. Overall, I think the biggest thing here is developing more awareness of how my body is responding to hormonal shifts all throughout the month, understanding my cycle specifically, understanding how I tend to feel in different cycle phases, understanding when I tend to ovulate, like what day of the month is my ovulation every month. For example, I know for me, I usually ovulate between days 20 and 22, but that's not the case for everyone. Like, some people might be ovulating on day 14 or 18. So with cycle tracking over time, like developing more knowledge about that, about my own body, and meeting myself where I'm at every month has just really empowered me with my hormone health. Up next, we have strength training. This is one of the best things that I've done for my hormone health. I started actively lifting weights in 2022. So I'm going on 3 years now that I've been making this a part of my lifestyle and my routine. And it's interesting because a lot of women don't lift weights because they're afraid of getting bulky. But the truth is that bulking is actually really hard. Like, you have to eat a lot of food and lift very, very heavy weights consistently for a long period of time in order to bulk. So I think getting rid of that limiting belief is really important. Strength training can support your hormone health in so many different ways. For example, it can improve your insulin sensitivity. It can help regulate the hunger hormones, which are leptin and ghrelin. It can boost neurotransmitters that are mood enhancing, like endorphins and dopamine. And it can even lower your baseline cortisol levels after you recover. Like, when you're working out, your cortisol levels rise just a little bit, but after your workout is done, it can essentially keep your baseline cortisol a little bit lower. It can also really support testosterone levels in a really healthy way, which benefits your energy, your fertility, your metabolism. So overall, lifting weights is such an underrated tool for your hormone health. This is something that has just made me feel so strong and so empowered. So I highly recommend giving it a try, even if it's once a week. Point number 9 is walking. This is like the most amazing free thing that you can do to support your hormones. As I've started to prioritize walking, especially morning walks, that has not only benefited my circadian rhythm because it helps me get that natural sunlight, it also is a great way to get more movement in and reduce my stress. I feel like whenever I come back from a walk, like my mood is just lifted and I feel so much better. It's a great way to take a little bit of a break from work too. I also live in New York and we walk a lot here. Like walking is a major mode of transportation in the city compared to like other major cities and like most of other places in the US. So if you live somewhere where you have to drive a lot, I'd say this has to be a more intentional effort. Like you have to be like, okay, I'm going to prioritize like getting outside and going for a walk and like maybe driving yourself to a park if you really want to like be walking in nature. But it's such an amazing tool. Research has shown that walking, especially at a moderate intensity for like 30 to 60 minutes, can really help with hormone regulation. It can help regulate cortisol, but it can also have impacts on insulin levels. It can help with thyroid hormones, sex hormones. Like it's just such an amazing tool. So make it a little bit of a priority for you, especially if you're someone who struggles with blood sugar regulation or energy, or you're just like always tired. Getting outside, getting fresh air, getting some steps can just be something that can really help you. One of the less obvious but really impactful changes that I've made is cutting out toxic people from my life and surrounding myself with supportive and positive relationships. For a lot of my life, I grew up wanting to fit in and just wanting to be accepted. And because of that, I focused a lot more on whether people liked me instead of whether or not I liked them. And this led me to stay in a lot of friendships and relationships that didn't add to my life and didn't make me feel good. So over the last few years, I've really shifted my approach to relationships and friendships. And I've really chosen to surround myself with people who can be there for me when I need help and support and advice and a shoulder to cry on, but more importantly, who can be by my side and cheering me on when I'm winning, and who can hold space for my growth, my success, without feeling threatened, without feeling jealous. That's been something that's been really important for me. And I also have really reduced the time that I spend around people who are always complaining, judging other people, always focusing on the negative. If you are someone who stays in toxic relationships, this can have a huge impact on your stress levels. It can really disrupt your hormone balance. But on the flip side, loving connections can trigger the release of oxytocin and dopamine and serotonin, which are all the happy hormones that we want. And that makes us more resilient. It can support our sleep, our immunity, and even our cycle health. So don't underestimate the impact that your social life can have on your hormone health. All right, you guys, those are the 10 shifts that I've made over the last 4 years that have really positively impacted my hormonal health. I want to be clear about the fact that I didn't focus on all of these 10 things all at once, and the changes did not happen overnight. But over the last 4 years, I have definitely felt like I have transformed not only my cycle health, but also my overall health, my sleep, my energy levels, and also my approach to stress and rest. And it's been really amazing. So I hope that you feel inspired by the things that I've shared in this video. And if you leave with one reminder, let it be that your lifestyle and the choices that you make every single day impact your hormones. And sometimes it's the smallest things that could be having the biggest impacts. So if you flip it around in a positive way, it could come down to a simple shift in tiny little things that you do that could really positively impact the way that you feel. And so what I recommend after you finish watching this video is just focus on 1 or 2 things that I talked about to start with. Try to get consistent with that. Think about which ones that I mentioned that apply the most to you. And maybe as you were listening, you were like, oh, I definitely don't do that. I should do that more. Like start with those, like start with the ones that hit the most, you know, and you can always add more or new things once you got those down pat. So take it slow. Don't try to do it all at once because that's the easiest way to feel overwhelmed and to also probably not get any of them done. Your hormones respond to consistency, and even small shifts can have big ripple effects over time. If you found this helpful, I would love to know in the comments. Let me know which points stood out the most to you. If you are interested in checking out any of the resources that I offer, I'll have those linked below. Thank you so much for watching. If you're not yet subscribed and you like my vibe, you like my content, let's be YouTube friends. Give this video a like, and I'll see you guys next week with another video.